Hello, thank you for tuning into this video. Today I'm going to be using the new Natasha Denona Triochrome Palette. Here it is. And I'm actually going to use every single shade in the palette on my eyes in some way. So if you'd like to see that and just see my thoughts on the palette as a whole, just keep on watching. I was immediately drawn to this green row right here. And honestly, I really bought this more for the mattes than for the 3 multi-chrome shades. And from what I've heard from other reviews is that the multi-chromes aren't quite as amazing as perhaps some multi-chromes from other brands, particularly indie brands like Cleona, brands like that. So I'm not too disappointed to have heard that because I really was more interested in the mattes. So I am going to do one eye with focusing on these greens, and then we'll see where I go with the other eye. So here we go. Let's start off with the greens. All right, so to start off, I'm going in with, I think, this lighter green shade here called Ion. So there's just Ion right in all over the crease there and sort of blend it up. It's not as pigmented as I was expecting, but I don't mind layering the shadow a little bit to build up the color. I mean, plus it is a fairly light, you know, almost kind of neon-y color. So I think it has probably quite a bit of white in its base, so that would take a little bit longer to build up on the skin. Now to deepen up the crease a little bit, I'm going to go in with this bit of a darker, sort of murkier shade called Vert. And I'm going to deepen up and define the outer V and a little bit into the crease with Scrap here. It's kind of an army green, very grayed out, sort of olive green type of color. Okay, so Scrap has quite a bit more immediate pigmentation. I'm not concerned because I am going to be going over the whole lid with that multi-chrome color that's in the center there. Just gonna blend out a little bit more, just mixing these two greens. I really love these warm yellowy greens, sort of swampy colors. I think are just so beautiful. I'm going to go all over the lid now with Scarab right here. So this one, I think you can see the multi-chrome factor here. So from this angle, it's a bit more of an antique gold or a sort of murky olive green, and then it shifts to a lighter color with more yellow in it, and then at another angle, it's a bit more of a sort of true traditional green color. Oh yeah, I can definitely see the color shifting even as I'm putting it on. It's quite pigmented. It was only a little light dip into the pan there that gave me this this much coverage with it. Going in with these two greens just to blend it all out a little bit and to like pick up more of that sort of yellowy green, because I find now that I've added this Scarab shade, it's, well, it depends on the angle. But from a certain angle, the green, the sort of true green color can dominate a little bit. So I wanted to just sort of enhance that yellowness with particularly this Vert color here. Okay, so that's basically this eye. I will go underneath with some mattes, and I'm just gonna mix these two. Seems to be a nice little combination. Yeah, that's great, and I think it is enhancing the yellowness of the look, the yellow greenness. And again, I'm going into Scrap right on the outer edge here. All these shadows so far are blending really nicely. I'm not having any issues with applying them. I don't see any fallout here whatsoever, so that's great. Now I don't want to use like a normal eyeliner. I think I'm just going to use powder for my eyeliner, so I'm going to go into scrap again and line this eye here. Okay, so it's not a very defined liner, but I think it does just add a bit of depth and definition to the lash line there. The only color that I haven't used is Enriched, so actually maybe let's put that on the inner corner just so we can use all of these colors. Now this one is quite powdery. And I think that's actually going great with the whole look too. It's a bit more of a minty kind of green. Obviously quite pastel, but I think it is melding quite nicely with the rest of these greens. All right, so here is the right eye all finished. Now for the left eye, I think I will mainly be using this middle row here. Let's start out here with Naga, this pale lilac kind of color. You're getting the same kind of effect from this as I was with the Ion shade, the first green one that I went into. So I think it will take just a little bit of building up, but I think it does provide a nice base that we can start working from. So next I'm going to go in with Tungsten, right here, this one on the end. This is a bit more of a dusty shade, but it still has, I think, more sort of pink in its undertones than Redox here, which is more of a gray lavender type of color. Yeah, this is blending really beautifully into that paler shade, and it looks lovely. It's pretty much blending itself here. Now again, just to deepen up the crease and the outer V a little bit, let's go into this darkest shade of this row, which is Manganese. Again, very easy to blend out. I used the mini booster for that. Now, because I'm not quite having the same intensity here, and I think it is just because of how the undertones work with my skin, I'm not getting as much of an impact as I was with this green here, because I don't have as much contrast. So I just want to see what happens when I add Redox. Sort of blending it up, higher up above the crease, and meshing it in with everything else. So because that has more gray undertone than the rest of the shades in this row that I've used so far, that is sort of bumping up the contrast level and the contour on the eye in the crease there. So I like to know that I can use that shade for that purpose here, just to add a little bit more smokiness and drama, even though it is quite a light tone shade. It's those gray undertones that help that out. All right, so I think that's good for my mattes on the lid, and I guess it's time to now go in with the multi-chrome shade here, which is called Kinetic. This one, I can see that sort of deep blue purple or violet-y type color. I can also see it shift to a color that looks quite similar to this matte right here. Perhaps also a deeper blue color at some angles, but it's quite hard to tell. I'm a bit nervous to put this on. I don't usually put such dark colors on my main part of my lid. I think Scarab was a little bit creamier, little bit slightly easier to blend out, but that's not to say that I'm having any real issues with this color anyway. Okay. I think this Kinetic shade could be really good actually just as your one and done kind of color. It would be a dramatic effect, but I think it has enough of depth in its base that it would almost look like a matte in the crease. So that's something that you could do with that shade as well. Now let's go onto the lower lash line again. I'm going to mix Tungsten and Naga together. All right, it's actually a little deeper than I was expecting it to be, but it's not bad. Let's do an inner corner as well. I don't think I need to do anything more on the outer bottom here. So for inner corner, just go with the Naga color as again, because it is the lightest one in this row. And I kind of just want to stick to this row for this look. And that actually is nice as an inner corner as well. I normally wouldn't put mattes on the inner corner. I'm just so accustomed to using like a light shimmery shade or a highlighter or something on the inner corner, but I think this is a nice sort of refreshing little change for me. And since they are light tones that are contrasting nicely, but also sort of in the same family as the overall lid colors, I think these mattes are working very nicely. Now I wanted to also put a little bit of a powder liner on this eye. I think I'm actually gonna try it with Kinetic. Okay, you can kind of see it. I'm actually gonna go wet my brush and try that again. Okay, here we are with the wet brush with some of that Kinetic color on it. And yes, I think that is showing up a little better. Of course, you want your liner to contrast a little bit with the lid, so I don't know if that was the smartest idea on my part, using the same color as I put all over the lid for my liner, but I think having wet it just gives that tiny little bit of extra definition that I was looking for. So here we have both of my eyes finished. So for the right eye, I have the top row with all these beautiful greens, and for the left eye, I have the middle row with all of these lovely purples. I'm feeling ambitious and inspired, so I actually want to do a look with the bottom row here as well. For this look with the bottom row, I've actually decided to start with Plutonium here. And this one I would say is going on a little bit quicker than the first two shades I used in the two previous looks. I love this color. I don't think I have anything quite like this in my collection. It's a very golden, warm yellow with probably a little bit of orange, but it's also a little bit muted, so it kind of reminds me of a butterscotchy type of color as well. It's really, really a beautiful, lovely and interesting color. Now I want to go in with Diatonic. All right, so I finished up with Diatonic there, and I'm actually going back in with Plutonium just to intensify that shade. I'm blowing it out even more, sort of dragging it out here. And I'm actually going to concentrate it more on the inner part of the sort of crease area here. It's a bit of a different style look than I'm used to doing. I want this Plutonium to really have a strong presence here. Now to deepen up the crease a little bit, I'm going in with Garmin, this shade right here. This isn't a particularly deep shade, but I think sort of similar to Redox in that purple look. It has a little bit more depth in its undertones, maybe a bit more gray or something, or maybe a bit more brown in its undertones or something, because it provides more of a shadow or a contour than you might expect just looking at it in the pan. And I'm just bringing this Garmin as well, just a tiny bit in, more like closer to the inner eye than I normally would bring this type of a shade as well. Okay, so there we have the mattes as our sort of base for this look. And it's now time to go in with the multi-chrome again. This one's called Color Flip. This one, I can see the shift here. At one angle, it's sort of a murky green type of color. And then there might be a little bit of a gold shift, and then it goes to that sort of warmer purpley tone, which you can see sort of what it is on the screen right now. This time I'm going to concentrate it a bit more in the center of the lid here, just to give all those mattes that I put in the inner part more of a chance to show up. This isn't really a halo eye per se, but it's more in keeping with that type of a shape where the lid color is concentrated right on the center and kind of goes up in a little bit of an arch. All right, I think I'd better stop there. I'm not as familiar with doing this type of a shape on the eye, so I don't want to bring that multi-chrome up too high or too far out. And for the lower lash line, because I do have those yellowy, orangey tones sort of, I think, more prominent on the upper lid, I'm going to stick more with the purpley tone. So actually I'm going to dip up above here. Let's do a little bit of tungsten, this one here, and I'm actually going to mix that a little bit with Garmin and do that all over the lower lash line. Yeah, I like how that's bringing out a bit more of the purpley tones from the lid color, because I have, you know, partly hooded eyes. You can't even really see that much of the lid color at certain angles on me unless my eyes are closed. So I like how that's sort of gonna pull in that purpley component of the look that you'll be able to see, you know, whether my eyes are closed or not. And for the inner corner, I'm going to use Vertex, which is this kind of beigey type of color here. Okay, so it's pretty much what it looks like in the pan. It's just a bit of a beigey taupe type of color. But I think it's nice to tie together the top and bottom here and to bring a little bit of light and smoothness to the inner corner. I wouldn't call it necessarily a highlight because at least for my skin tone, it's not lighter than my skin tone at all. And it doesn't really contrast very much with it either, but it brings the top and bottom together. And I think it might have a tiny bit of a purplish, really, really tiny bit of purplish undertone in it. And all that's left is just to do a bit of liner here. And for the liner, I'm actually going to go in with manganese. All right, so this look I thought needed just a little bit more grounding than the other two did. So I did put on a double layer of mascara here, and I used my Victoria Beckham Cocoa liner on the upper waterline, just to, as I said, just to sort of ground these colors a little bit. The yellows could give quite a unique effect, and I think that this look benefits from having a bit more darkness around the lash line. So there we have it. That is the whole Natasha Denona Triochrome palette with every shade used on my eyes. I really like this palette. I haven't been wearing much eyeshadow at all lately, let alone colorful eyeshadows like these, but I was very drawn to this palette, and I was very drawn to especially the mattes. As I said before, the green row, I love these types of greens. I also liked the sort of variety in the different types of purples that she had here. So we've got a bit of a nice warmer, sort of with more brown in it, purple, and then we have the nice gray purple, and this pastel here as well. I love pastel colors, so I was drawn to those as well, and of course this yellow here was very appealing to me. So I am really happy that I grabbed this palette. I went back and forth about it, as I do with most Natasha Denona palettes. I haven't picked up her last couple of releases, but I was just so drawn to this one, and I was able to get it during the Sephora sale, so at least I got it 20% off. And I'm happy that I did. This has sort of reinvigorated my love for eyeshadows. I used to do like a full eyeshadow look every day when I was going into work, and I loved playing around with colors and doing, you know, quite bold and vibrant or smoky eyes. And I just haven't been doing that lately. It's just, you know, doesn't really fit in with my lifestyle as it is currently, but this has sort of reinvigorated my love for doing creative and fun and bold eyeshadow looks. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below. If you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!